Hey, Dan, thanks for taking a minute to talk to my class of application and web development students. I think the program name has changed since you graduated.
Yeah, I graduated from Internet and Web-based technology.
Yeah, in 2016 you mentioned.
Yep,
Cool. So how
2016.
many how many jobs have you had since graduation?
I got a job before I graduated
Okay.
from them just coming in here. So that one, then about 2 years later, I went to a job out of O'Fallon. Then I switched to a place called Kava, and now I'm at Worldwide. So I've been at four places.
Four different companies since
Yep,
graduation in 16.
yep.
So 16 to 13, we're talking 7 years. You're about every 2 years or so, which is pretty normal, right? You get a bunch of experience, and then you could take that to another company and continue to grow. So, anyways, I jumped ahead of my first question, which is, would you mind introducing yourself? You know, who are you, and where you working? What's your job title? All that kind of stuff.
Sure. So I'm Daniel Moore. I went to Ranken and I studied Internet and Web-based technologies with Mr. G here, and graduated in 2016. And I'm currently working for Worldwide Technologies, and I'm an MDM developer for Master Data Management developer.
So, what does a master data management developer do?
So what we want to do is make sure that there's one version of the truth of the data, and there's so many different softwares that a big company uses, and in those different softwares you can get different versions of the data. So a master data management solution is one spot where people can go to for the truth of what the data is. So we do a bunch of ETL processes, extract, transform, and load between what the main MDM software is and the other implementations out there. So we make sure that the version of the truth is what we say it is, and we also do service work to make sure that everything's working properly.
So, at Rankin, we primarily, I mean, back in the day, we would only study SQL databases, so Microsoft SQL Server. We didn't really get in much into Oracle, and I know back then we also didn't get into like Mongo or NoSQL databases. So nowadays we do both. We do relational databases and NoSQL. And so, can you talk about kind of what databases you see and work with on a regular basis?
Yeah, so right now I work with Oracle SQL. We're in an Oracle shop here at Worldwide, and I've done work with MongoDB in the past, but the bulk of my experience with SQL is Microsoft SQL, MS SQL.
So you've dabbled in the different realms as well.
Yep.
And so, Worldwide Technology is one company, but correct me if I'm wrong, you guys do work for a lot of other companies in the St. Louis area.
Yeah.
And so, what companies through Worldwide have you worked with?
Well, I'm an internal team,
Oh, okay.
so I don't do any contracting work or anything like that. So I mainly stick to the internal side of things
Gotcha.
with all the internal data we have. Yeah.
Which is why you're able to just focus on one database system like Oracle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what languages have you worked with in your career? Different coding languages, database languages.
Yep. So I was a .NET developer for probably the first 5 years. So I did C Sharp with Microsoft .NET, and then at Kava I was a data engineer. So I was the only person there who knew C Sharp. So there was an application that they used their master data management solution. That's what I was working on, and I was the only one there who knew how to do it. So that was interesting. But right now, I'm doing Java for the first time since school. So here at Worldwide, that's the first time using Java since out of Ranken. So that was interesting.
Well, that's cool. I mean, this class right now, they're primarily using JavaScript, but they're about to
Mm-hmm.
hit another. Their fourth semester is all .NET. So hopefully they can, what advice would you give to students as they're starting to learn the .NET world?
Um, I would probably read your textbook. There's a lot of the fundamentals that you learn that are really helpful when you get out. So
It's
and they also it also translates in when you're learning .NET and you're thinking, hey, I don't really think that I'm going to be using this. I really want to do this language. It's really helpful to learn. If you learn Spanish, then it's easier to learn a different language. It's the same thing for development. So if you learn .NET and you work in it, it's a lot easier to go to Java and learn that too.
Yeah. So how was your transition from C# to Java? I mean, was it almost seamless or a good learning curve? How'd that feel?
It felt pretty seamless. There's some different syntax that you've got to remember, and different little things about the language, but overall they're very similar, Java and C sharp.
Yeah, and so it's a common thing that when beginner students, they touch a language like C#, and then they see another language and they get intimidated by it. It's like, well, I've never touched that before, right? And so what you're saying is that they might not be so different and to maybe not be so intimidated by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And so why did you choose this industry, or why'd you get into this?
It's actually a funny question because I was actually enrolled for a little bit at University of Central Missouri in their aviation program. And then one of my buddies that I knew, he had gone to Ranken, and he said, you know what, you should go to Ranken. So I said, sure, I'll do that.
So you did
So
you
I
just weren't that interested in aviation, or why the switch?
Well, I started looking into how much money I could be making doing either one, and I didn't really know that I was going to be doing software development. I just knew that I was going to go into the IT program. The
Yeah,
first semester, you go in and figure out what you want to do.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Cool, cool. So in your time in the industry, do you have any kind of fun or cool software projects that you've worked on that kind of stand out as kind of interesting? Or is it all kind of boring, just business software?
one of the an interesting one was using one of Google's API to get to geolocate some of the offices, so get coordinates from all over the world. Like in India, that one was a pretty tough one to figure out, and then map them on a map for everyone to see. That was pretty interesting.
So just working with Google's API, Google's library of code to kind of pinpoint, you said offices?
Yeah, offices and customers that we have.
Okay, cool. Have you worked on any software that's had like a high usage amount, like hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of users?
Oh, well, I've been doing all internal stuff, so just however many employees the company has, that's the people that are using it.
Yeah, but Worldwide is a pretty big company in the St. Louis area. So suffice to say, a lot of employees, probably a fair amount of usage.
hmm And I guess it indirectly, affects customers. We master the customer data, so.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's cool. So what's a day in your life like? I mean, it would appear that you're working from home. So do you work from
Yep.
home? Do you work from home often, or and then what time do you kind of clock in? What time do you clock out? What's a normal day like?
So yeah, I'm full-time remote, but there is an off since we're headquartered here in St. Louis. I can go in whenever I want. That doesn't happen too often. But we've got basically our team office hours are 9 to 3. So those are the times when you generally when we have meetings.
Yeah.
And you can do work pretty much whenever you want outside of that if you want to. So 9 to 3, we've got our first meeting at 9:30, a stand-up meeting. And the rest of the day, we have various meetings throughout the day and downtime, down work.
How big is your team?
Like I'd say about 14 people on my team.
14.
I don't know the exact number.
And are
Yeah.
they all in the St. Louis area, or are they located all across the United States?
We've got some in Florida, California. I think my boss lives in Utah, maybe.
All over the
I
place.
don't know. I don't even know where she is, but all over the place.
What percentage of your day is spent like in the code versus in meetings and administrative tasks like emails?
It depends on the day. On average, I'd say 6 hours heads down time working, and the 2 hours in stand up or other meetings. We have days where we have more meetings, like when we get to the end of a sprint. The sprint ends on a Wednesday, so we have a day full of meetings then.
So if it's an 8-hour day, 6 hours writing code, 2 hours other.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So you mentioned you had a job before graduation. How did you land that?
So it was actually really nice. You got together with a company in Clayton, and you brought them in to talk about what they do, and then also you gave us the opportunity to interview with them at Ranken. And they got together resumes, they interviewed a couple people, and then they ultimately chose to hire me. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm I remember the company, right? Barry Waymiller. But I didn't remember the whole process or what happened. And yeah, so they came into the classroom, if I'm remembering right, and talked about their company and then interviewed a handful of the classmates. Yeah. Do you keep in touch with any of the classmates? Your old classmates?
Yeah, a couple of them. Yeah, I'd say about 2 or 3 of them I do.
Just out of curiosity, who do you keep in touch with?
Adam, Caston,
Yeah.
Nick. I keep in contact with Nick, and then also one from another year of yours. Do you remember Dakota?
Yeah. Yeah. Hudson?
Yeah, I keep in contact with. I don't even remember his last name.
Yeah, I think that's the name that jumps into mind. So, oh well, that's
Oh,
cool.
Westbrook. Dakota Westbrook.
Dakota. Who's Dakota? Okay, Westbrook. Yeah. Well, cool, man. I could picture his face, blonde hair.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So, what tips? I'm gonna say, what tips would you have to get your foot in the door? But it sounded like you were just prepared. Like you just had a resume, interviewed. Any other advice to kind of, now that you've been out in the industry, any tips for like entry level folks to get their foot in the door?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with how you interview. You could know your stuff, and hopefully you do. But I think having a good interview skill is really helpful. They're looking for someone who would fit good on their team and a good personality, more so than what you know about your technical skills. I don't think I ever did one whiteboard session in an interview.
Yeah, which is a question, is if you had to answer a technical questions or technical coding challenge during an interview. It doesn't sound like you had.
Well, the first one. So when we did our first initial interview for my first place here at Ranken, and then they got together a list of people that they wanted to interview at their office.
Uh-huh.
I didn't do any whiteboarding, but they did slap a computer down in front of me and tell me to do some SQL. So
Okay.
that was the only time I did any technical stuff.
Gotcha. And so your advice around getting that entry level job is to interview well, and right. And so how do you interview well, other than I guess you could search for interview techniques, but what would be your advice on interviewing well? How would you do that?
I would say be very personable. I wouldn't be as professional as you think you probably should be in an interview, but it's nice to be to relate to them. Make a couple jokes.
Yeah.
And it definitely, it sounds weird to say, hey, practice with someone, but that's definitely something that you can do just to get your nerves down.
Yeah, something that, at least at Ranken we've done a lot with career success skills is even interviewing yourself and playing yourself back on tape, or, used to be on tape, but now just with your phone, right? So practice, right? Practice. How do you get good at anything? Well, you practice it. So practice it by yourself, practice it with a friend. Sounds like a little bit of what you're saying.
Yeah. If you play it and listen back to it, you can say, "Oh, hey, I was cracking my nails or cracking my fingers then,"
Yeah.
or I've been saying a lot, or I've been looking up, just those kind of things. People will notice.
Yep. What do you think of the job market right now? COVID kind of shook everything up. Is it a hot job market? Is it cooling? What's it like to you? What do you see out there?
So during COVID and a little bit after, I noticed pretty much the people that were reaching out to me were for contract jobs, and they didn't know whether or not they were going to have more capacity or what. They just wanted 6 month contracts or 12-month contracts. But now I'm seeing full-time position jobs come back. It feels like it did before COVID.
Cool. So that would be a positive thing, yeah. Cool, man. Cool. So, you've been in this industry for, 6-7 years. Just want to say, congratulations on finding the career you were looking for. You happy? You going to do this for the rest of your life? You see yourself as a lifer, or are you going to maybe change industries someday? What do you think?
I don't think I'm going to change industries. I think I might do something like be a data architect or a data scientist, but definitely still within the industry.
Yeah. So you're happy in the industry and maybe changing roles within the industry, but you're happy in this space.
Yep, it's a good place.
Cool, man. So you are still in the St. Louis area, right?
Yeah, I live in South City.
Okay, very cool. Well, that's the list of my questions, man. I just want to thank you again for taking a little bit of time and talking to my class, and congratulations on finding that success.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, man. All right. Hey, have a good day. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.